Hello, everyone. I feel that this video is going to be a bit of an epic one. So grab yourself a cuppa and sit down for story time in the village. I have a story here about Stormfire Gnome, one of the most pivotal characters in the story. And just in case there are those of you who don't know who Stormfire Gnome is, he is a gnome that likes to use tea tree oil in his aromatherapy work. Okay. So it's interesting. Yesterday I said to Cat's Magic, my husband, I said, I think I'm going to take tomorrow off work. I've been constantly bringing forward downloads, making videos, writing notes down, writing down channeled material, transmissions, non-stop for the last few weeks. And I think I'm just going to take tomorrow off and just not do anything like that at all, and just chill and read a book or just do something else. And then last night I had this epic dream where it was like I was involved in an unfolding story in a film. And when I actually woke up after the dream, and it was about 6 a.m. because I looked at the phone and I messaged a friend of mine and said, I've just had this epic Stormfire dream and I need to sort of take some notes because I'm worried I'll forget if I go back to sleep. So I did. I took some notes, which I've got here to remind me. But I thought, well, gosh, I can't take tomorrow off. I need to actually share this. And I did go back to sleep. And when Cat's Magic and I finally got up, I said, look, sit down. I had an epic dream. Well, I didn't tell him, actually. I said, sit down. And he said, why? Did you have a dream? I said, yeah, because I always tell him when they're this detailed and long and storybook like. So I sat down and I told him everything, and we talked about it, we analysed it a little bit, but I feel the most important thing is to first of all say a dream is a dream. So this doesn't mean it's real. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. Dreams can be precognitive and clairvoyant. So there can be things that are going to happen are presented in those dreams, especially if that individual is a psychic and is working as a psychic, especially if that individual is working and delivering that information to many people. But that can still be a mixture of that person's own mind and working out what's happening in the wider world. It can also be absolute message. So rather than me interpret the dream, I'm going to tell you the dream and give it to you exactly as it occurred. Then I will go through my own personal analysis of some of it. I haven't processed all of it. I wanted to actually just deliver this as soon as possible. What I'd like to say is your interpretation of the symbols of the dream is more important for your reality than my interpretation. If you really feel as though there's something there that I've missed in my interpretation, feel free to message me. You can contact me on Telegram in the Telegram group. You can contact me on Instagram under the post for this video. You can email me, and my email address is on my website. So yeah, I mean, I welcome interpretations, because this is quite a thought-provoking dream, let's say. So this is story time. We're entering into the village, the bifurcated village novel that I've been writing for such a long time with your help. And the character Stormfire Gnome, who uses tea tree in his aromatherapy, is the pivotal character here. There are other pivotal characters, though. It's like Stormfire isn't necessarily the protagonist. Let's just get to the dream and then I can look at the analysis afterwards. Okay, so I took some notes at 6 a.m. The dream takes place. So the environment is a building. At first, I perceived this to be a house, but then I realized it was more like an office. But it's like a sort of an office version of a house. It's a house cross office, let's say. It was high up because the windows, I was looking down. So this was a high up office building with big rooms. The main room was like a huge room. So this was an office room that you could sort of say was a living room because there were sofas there. There's an absolutely giant television screen on the wall, biggest TV I've ever seen. And that was constantly playing all sorts of news information, let's say. And then there were a series of telephones. Interestingly, the telephones were those old-fashioned telephones you had in the 70s, 60s, 70s and 80s. I had one as a kid, you know, with the receiver and the little curly dial that you pick up. That was the main telephone. But the media could contact everyone in this office via these telephones. There were several of them, several people answering the phones. I was also one of the individuals that was answering the phones. There were several people there doing all sorts of different jobs. So people were milling in and out, coming in. There was a lot of fast moving flurry, kind of like what you would imagine an office to be, really, but an office that is perhaps in some way media related or government related. There was a lot going on, a lot of important focused individuals focused on their jobs. Over to the side of that room, oh yeah, I must mention the carpet. For some reason I was really drawn to note the carpet. When I was at school, in our maths suite, which was like one of the biggest classrooms, they had these square carpet tiles that would all be put together. And they were made of this really scratchy, cheap sort of carpet that isn't really carpet. It's like floor covering that's like kind of like a wool, but really scratchy and not very comfy. You wouldn't have that kind of carpet perhaps in a house. It was more like office floor. And again, it was very much like the old offices back in the 80s and 90s, that kind of carpet that we had back then in the UK domain. So old-fashioned phones, old-fashioned carpet. Then over to the side was this long kitchen, and there was like kettles and cupboards, food, bottles, drink, a little fridge, cooker, and anyone could go in and use the kitchen. Over to the other side of the building was a huge, because the building was like a massive L shape with the lounge coming across, huge television screen, L-shaped coming back here. And then there was a door here to a huge bedroom. And then there was a window at the end, but that was a portal. That was a portal area where this other individual, this character in the story, came down, and that individual that popped down every so often would just come through the portal and sort of land in the room, was like a cross between a doctor, a physician, and a scientist. He was known as I did write it down, what he was known as. The representative. Yeah, he was known as the representative. He wore a white jacket over his clothes, stethoscope around his neck, and glasses. Very scientific-like and physician doctor-like, so science, medical. But he came down in a portal, and he was a representative for the higher dimensional consciousness. He was also connected in some way to my guidance system, the White-Winged Collective Consciousness of 9, in some form. The only person there that could communicate with this representative was me. Other people could see him land through the portal, but they couldn't speak to him. I was the only person that could speak to him. Cat's Magic was there with me. Stormfire Gnome was either the boss of the building, the CEO of the company, or owned the building. I felt, I don't know, but he was like the top man. And everyone working in this building was working for him and for his kind of team. And he was like the boss. And he was coming in every so often to sort of check on things. Not that many people spoke to him that much. They all had their own jobs to do. Sometimes they did have to come and talk to him. Stormfire Gnome wore a grey suit, but the grey suit had two different colour greys. It was like one was a paler grey, the trousers, and then a darker grey jacket, and no tie. And sometimes he had that jacket open with a shirt, so it was kind of like casual look rather than a smart look. And I was part of this team, and so was Cat's Magic. I don't know how we got there or why we were part of the team, but we were. But I had access to Stormfire whenever I needed to talk to him, because he would disappear out of the room. He'd be gone doing other stuff, and we would be in the room doing things, and then he would come back. I had access to talk to him more than anybody else. In fact, out of all the dreams I've had of Stormfire, I had access to him in this dream more than I've ever had, and I saw him more than I ever have and spoke to him more than I ever have in this dream, which is why I wanted to come in and talk about the dream. And that's why I woke up and thought it was epic, because it really did go on and on in my perception. I mean, for all I know, I was dreaming for 2 minutes or even 2 seconds, but the perception of the dream was a long one. Okay, so that's the building. So the first thing that I remember about Stormfire was he was very personable, but he didn't give away a lot of his emotion. When he spoke to you, it would sometimes come across as a bit stern, and he didn't always necessarily smile. He had quite a non-smiling look on his face when he was talking. When something good was happening, he didn't particularly show that he was pleased. If something bad was going on, he didn't show that he was perturbed. He was very calm and sort of stoic, and only his eyes betrayed any kind of emotion, really. And the reason why I know that is because I had to talk to him about something. So he was off somewhere, I don't know where. So this is the next bit. Cat's Magic came up to me and said, Stormfire has got some water. He wants to preserve the water. This is fresh water, but we need to filter it because there are areas of contamination in the water. And Cat's Magic showed me the water in this like bottle, and it was like sort of a brown sludge in the clear water, so we had to filter it. Then he wanted this water to be put into specific bottles. I have no idea if this is relevant at all, really, in any way. I'm just telling you the whole dream. So the water bottles he wanted us to filter the water into were a really weird shape, and they were kind of shaped like that's the top and then a long thin and then come out with a base at the bottom like this. So they were this test tube type shape bottle made of glass with a little top. And I said, that's not the right shape of bottle. I don't think we should store this fresh, clean water, which was really precious. I got the feeling that the water was really precious and that Stormfire had collected it, and it was, you know, just a major commodity. I said, I don't want to store it in the test tube shaped bottle. I want to store it in these ones. And I found these other ones, which were just normal bottles with a normal top coming straight down and bigger, and they could hold more. Cat's Magic was worried because he had agreed with Stormfire to filter the water and put them into the test tube shaped bottles. He didn't want to go against what Stormfire had asked him to do, especially as Cat's Magic had agreed to do it. So he'd already made a commitment. And to him, it was like, this is Stormfire. This is Stormfire Gnome. Let me just check we're recording here. This is Stormfire Gnome. I can't not do what he says. He's the boss, man. He's like the owner. He's the big guy. And everyone was in real reverence to Stormfire. Like, you know, he says something, you do it. But I wasn't like that. I was like, no, he's not always right. You know, he doesn't always get it right. These are the better bottles. These are the ones we need to use to store this water in. And Cat's Magic is like really torn. He's like, do I listen to Stormfire Gnome, who's like Stormfire, the boss? Or do I listen to like Magenta, who is like my wife? So he was like really torn. And I just kept saying, look, you're not going to get in trouble. You leave him to me. I will talk to him. He's got to realize that he doesn't always get everything right. And these are the bottles we need to use. Finally and reluctantly, Cat's Magic agreed. So we filtered all this water into these big, normal shaped, sort of large jar-like bottles, and we stored all the water. There was one tiny bit of the sort of contamination that didn't quite filter out. And I said, well, it's okay. It's only a small bit. So there was all clear water with just a tiny bit of contamination just sitting there. Now, Stormfire had wanted all the contamination filtered out. And I said, well, it's only a tiny bit. I'll explain. He then came in and somehow he had found out that I had used the wrong bottles, that he had said we should use the other ones. And he was really cross and he was really not happy about this at all. And he was very sort of focused on the bottles, like it was the most important thing at that moment. But like I said, he didn't show emotion. I could tell he was cross because he was moaning about the bottles, but he didn't shout or rant and rave. He didn't show anger, but he was just continually drawing my attention to the bottles. And I said to him, and I actually used these words, it's awful. I said, you're being like a baby, you're being pig-headed, I said, and you're being really stubborn. And you're not giving me a chance to explain to you why I wanted to use the other bottles. Just because you're the boss man and you're the big top banana in this building, everyone saw him as top banana in this building. And just because you are that doesn't mean you're right about the water. And he would look at me in this way, and his mouth was just like, no smile, no nothing, no frowning. And he would look at me, and it was a weird look because I could tell he was annoyed. He felt that I was like not threatening him, but challenging him. And he wasn't used to people arguing back to him. But at the same time, there was this respect and this, well, I mean, kind of like love, really. There was this respect and love for me, and almost like he knew how important I was to the whole plan because I could speak to the representative. So we had this kind of understanding, even though we were both at loggerheads with each other. And then he just calmly said to me, did you manage to filter out all of the contamination? I said, well, no, admittedly, there is one small piece. And he said, that wouldn't have happened if you'd have used the bottles I said. And I said, what? How can your shaped bottles have made any difference to us filtering? And he said, that's what would have happened. And then I started to think, well, was he right? I mean, I was absolutely sure that the bottles I wanted were the right ones. The other ones just seemed such a ridiculous shape to me. But then I thought, well, was he right? Because admittedly, there was a bit of contamination. So that made me think. So that was one part of the dream. Okay. The next part of the dream, the representative came down from the portal and he was there. So I said to Stormfire, the representative's here. He said, you go and talk to him. So this was like the respect that we had. It's like my role was to talk to the representative of the higher dimensional energies, higher dimensional council, and come back to Stormfire and tell him what the higher dimensional representative had said. So he knew that was important. There's one other thing, that's right. When we were arguing, or really not, there wasn't an argument. When we were at loggerheads about the bottles, I actually said to him, this is the word for word, what difference does it make that we're not in agreement about the bottles when I support you 1000% in being top banana? Does that not count for the most important thing. Any other little disagreement about water bottles is nothing. I support you 1000%. And again, I got this sort of response, which was not really a smile, just looking at me with this little glint in his eye, which was agreement and approval and pleased that I felt that way. But he didn't show it in his mouth. He didn't sort of go, yes, you know, and smile. It was just like, but this look. So yeah, that was strange. Okay. I then went over to the representative. Right, what did he say? Oh yeah, that's right. Okay. I must take these notes because this, how do you remember a dream this detailed? Okay, so I go over to the representative and he said to me, the single most important thing for us, we was positive polarized consciousness, positive polarized intelligence, higher dimensional council, and that, like, frequency, I guess. And he was a representative for that. The single most important thing for us that we must do in third density, and he used the word density, not dimension. The single most important thing that we must do is get Stormfire back into the house that is white. And I said, well, yes, I agree with you that needs to be done, but why is that the single most important thing that you need to do in the third density? I can't agree with that. There's loads of important things we need to do in the third density. Loads and loads of important things. How can that be? And he repeated, the single most important thing that we must do in the third density is get Stormfire back into the house that is white. Right, okay. So I kind of let it be known that I didn't quite understand that, and that I was sort of not necessarily in agreement that that was the most important thing, couldn't understand why. And then he said, and once we have done that, that is when the work begins. And I said, that's when the work begins. So, like, what do you mean? And he said to me that, I'm trying to remember how he said this, almost as though if you had a group of people that were annoyed about something and they decided to act out, they might perhaps take out their annoyance on a small group of people. What the representative was telling me is the people that didn't want Stormfire in the house that is white would take out their annoyance on the whole world. So that's what he was saying to me. That's why our work really begins, because this will affect the whole world. So I said, if the annoyance from that side is going to be taken out on the whole world, the entire world, why do you want to get Stormfire into the house that is white? Wouldn't it be better not to get him in and not trigger that? And he said, at the moment, there are tools available to us. However, once Stormfire is placed back in the house that is white, we will then have the tools that we need to be able to do the work, to do the job. And that job is navigation, cleaning up, removal of the overlord structure, and however that works. But I got the feeling that that only just begins when Stormfire gets into the house that is white. That's the dream. I'm not saying I believe any of this in real life. I'm literally just giving you the dream because I haven't fully processed this. So that was the message. He then went back through the portal. Stormfire had gone, but whenever I walked back over to the door, because he went through this side door, there were people milling around still. Whenever I went over to the door with the thought that I needed to speak to Stormfire, he was there immediately. There was a little bit of surprise amongst some of the people that I had such access to Stormfire. However, all the people in the building were completely part of the Stormfire team, and they were fine with it. They were just a bit surprised, but they knew I spoke to the representative, so they just carried on milling around with their work. Stormfire came to me and I told him what the representative said. It's funny with the reaction I got. So I just said, the single most important thing for the team that the representative is representing, the higher dimensional consciousness and intelligence and positively polarized frequency, is to get you back into the house that is white. And his response was just like a little nod, no smile, no, just like nod of agreement. Okay. And then, but that's when the work will really begin. Another little nod of agreement, because those that don't want you back in the house that is white will take it out on the whole world. Nod of agreement. It's, you know, as he thought, he agreed with what was being said. Okay, so that was that next. He didn't really say anything, just nods of agreement there. I felt some time had passed, because he was milling in and out of the door and people were milling around, and I just had the feeling some time had passed, not too long. And then the representative came back again. Stormfire was there, and sometimes I knew time had passed because sometimes he wore a jacket that was done up with like a plain shirt, and other times he had a different jacket that was sort of made of different material and it was open and a different shirt on. So I kind of felt the passing of time through that, but that wasn't necessarily massively relevant. So the representative came back. Stormfire this time wasn't around. Cat's Magic was working and doing other things, and you know, we were both part of the team doing our job. I went over to the representative and he said to me, in that room there, which was this huge like bedroom off the side of the living room, there's a big bed in there, and this was for people who were working. If they were tired, they could go and lie down, they could sit down. There was like a dressing table in there. It was kind of like a dressing room, but there was a big bed in there, and it was just a rest place. Huge, these were huge rooms. And the representative said, there's a woman in that room and she is giving birth to a baby. I said, oh my goodness, you know, just like really shocked at what I was hearing. And the representative said, you see whether we're recording? Yes, we are. The representative said, the child is Stormfire's child. He is the biological father. And I said, what? You're kidding. And I was a little bit annoyed, not annoyed. I was just a little bit like, yes, slightly annoyed. Like, what's he playing at? Having a baby with this woman that no one knows when, you know, he's married. And I was just a bit cross there. I'm not saying this is happening, by the way, in real life. This is a dream. This is all symbolic. Okay. So I was a bit cross. And then he said, the baby, it is absolutely crucial that the baby is born safely. Unfortunately, the mother will not make it. The mother will not survive. But the baby, which is a girl child, it's absolutely crucial that she survives and that she is born. I said, okay, well, you know, what can I do to help? I'm just looking at my notes. And they said, this girl child will be the savior of the world. The savior of the world. I said, oh, okay, you know, this is massive stuff. What can I do to help? And they said, there's no doctor here. There's no midwife here. And I said, well, you're the nearest thing to a doctor, because he was wearing the white coat. He had the stethoscope. And he said to me, and you are the nearest thing to a midwife. I said, what? No, I am not a midwife. I can't deliver a baby. I can't deliver a baby that is so crucial that it needs to be born. It's going to be the savior of the world, and it's Stormfire's child. Oh, no. I mean, that is just way too much responsibility. I can't do it. And they said, you are the only person here in the building that can do it, and you must do it. Right. Okay. All right. Thank you. And he went. And I went to Cat's Magic. I told Cat's Magic what I'd been asked to do. And I was really cross. And Stormfire casually came in. And I went up to him and I said, is it true there's a woman in that room giving birth to your baby. It's your child. And he just said, yes, it's true. I said, well, I've just been asked to deliver the baby. And he said, yes, I agree with that. You must do this. And, you know, again, he was in agreement with what the representative was saying. And I'm like, oh, I've got no experience of being a midwife. Do you know what? The only person that was losing their cool was me. I'm like, what? Everyone else is milling around. They're all fairly cool. You know, the fast pace moving. Cat's Magic was a bit concerned by all of it. But I'm the one that's like losing it more than anyone else. Okay, fine. I'll do it. Okay. So I go into the room and I'm barking orders at everyone, like you see in the films, like get towels, get hot water. I don't know what to do with towels and hot water. But you see it in the films, don't you? Get towels, get hot water. The baby's coming. Anyway, so I remember just being there, and there was baby, and it wasn't particularly graphic or anything. It was very symbolic of birth. And I kind of put my hands down and delivered this baby. And I knew at that time that the mother had passed away. And I didn't really, I mean, I felt a bit sort of disappointed about that, but there wasn't any massive emotion there particularly. I didn't know who the woman was. And I held the baby, and I remember holding the baby and picking her up and holding her up in my arms and looking at her. And I couldn't believe it. This is the weirdest part of the dream. This baby was like a newborn baby and was a girl, but she had Stormfire's face on her. she had Stormfire, a little mini Stormfire face, and she had like bright red hair that was sort of spiking up like this, like sticking up, like bright red hair. And but she looked just like a mini Stormfire. And I had never seen a baby in my life that was the spitting image of their father. And I remember holding her and actually saying, she looks just like a little gnome. Because obviously Stormfire Gnome is a gnome. The other thing that happened was I fell instantly in love with this baby. Massively, massively, deeply, and I can still feel it now. Deeply, deeply in love with this baby. It was just washed over me. My heart just opened. I just loved the baby just so instantly. I just felt it was the cutest little baby, more than any puppy or kitten or baby that I've ever seen. I was deeply, deeply in love with this baby. And I thought, I can't get attached to her. You know, she's not mine. Yes, okay, so I delivered her, but and I thought, I'm gonna have to hide my feelings that I love her so much from everyone, including Stormfire. So I was holding her, and I wrapped a white sheet around and had her here by my sort of chest here, which is where when my babies were born, I often had them here, and I'd have them on my shoulder, and I would, like, you know, pat their back after a feed. I was doing all of that motherly stuff, and I was just so in love with this little baby. And I walked out of the room, and Stormfire was there, and I went over and I showed him. I took the baby and showed him, and he didn't want to hold the baby. He didn't want to hold his daughter. He wasn't interested in cuddling her or anything like that. And there was no smile. Again, he was very stoic, but there was this look in his eye of extreme pride, great love, and instant duty of fatherly protection. I could feel it there, and you could see it in his eyes, but he wasn't showing it in his persona. And he was barking orders at getting protection, as in bodyguard protection, to come in for the child. Right, have I missed anything out? Okay, so the next thing was the telephones were ringing off the hook, and I said to Stormfire, what do you want to name her? You know, what do you want to call her? And he said he's going to give her two names, a first name and a second name, and her first name would be Sophie. I said, oh, okay, Sophie, that's really cute. And I remember saying to him, she's the spitting image of you. I have never, ever seen a baby look so much like their father. And again, no smile, just this glint in his eye of pride. The phones were ringing off the hook. And I said, no, he said, we can tell that'll be the press, the media on the phone. We can tell them Sophie's first name, but not the second name just yet. And I said, what? I don't think that we should tell them that you've even had a baby. Let's just keep Sophie secret. What are you thinking of? And he that's the first time he gave a little smile, a little tiny smile, the corner of his mouth, a little glint in his eye. He said, oh, no, it's fine. We can tell them about the baby. And I just remember thinking, oh, God, he's playing with the press again. He's playing with the media again. Why is he doing it? So I said, oh, right, okay. And the phones were ringing, and somehow they'd already found out that Sophie had been born. They didn't know her name. They didn't know that I delivered her. And I said to him that I would look after her until he could find like a nurse or a surrogate mother or whatever. But the press didn't know any of this. The press just knew that a baby girl had been born and that Stormfire was the father. And I'm like, well, what shall I tell them? And he said, well, you can tell them that her name is Sophie, and just tell them that. Okay. And I said, do you not want them to know what her second name is? He said, oh, yeah, they can know in a few days. And again, he gave this little smirk. Let's leave them sort of hanging for a few days on the second name. And I'm like, he's playing with them again. And I remember thinking, it's really naughty, but he's actually a genius, because the press on the phones were going absolutely nuts, freaking out, really like crazy, wanting to know what was going on, wanting a story. Their emotions were just all over the place. But Stormfire was calm and having a giggle. And I remember thinking, he is a genius, how he's playing this game. I went over to the phones. I spoke to them. I said, yes, there's a baby girl. Her name is Sophie. Next minute, it was all over the media, all over the news that Stormfire had this baby girl. Her name was Sophie. Okay, so, and I was fully aware that she was the savior of the whole world. I didn't know how. What was the next bit? Oh, yeah. I spoke to Stormfire and I said, I will look after her until you can organize a nurse or a surrogate mother to look after her and bring her up, because I knew Stormfire couldn't do it because he was so busy with all this other work. And people were bringing in like a pram, nappies, toys. People were making up formula milk in the kitchen. We had everything we needed. Every single thing that Sophie could possibly need was just there for her. And then he looked at me, Stormfire, and he said, I want you to bring Sophie up. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? I can't do that. No, I want you to bring her up. I want you to be her surrogate mother. You bring her up. I said, look, I can't do that. It's too much responsibility. I already delivered her. I've looked after her. There's no way that I can bring up your daughter that is the savior of the whole world. I mean, it's just too much responsibility. Please get someone else. I can't do it. He said, you are absolutely the person to do this. But the thing is, inside, I loved Sophie so much that I was kind of secretly pleased that he'd asked me, because I'm like, I don't want to let her go, even though the responsibility was so massive and I really didn't want that. You know, this is the savior of the world. This is Stormfire's child. But I was secretly pleased because I loved her so much. I said, let me go and think about it. So I went away. I spoke to Cat's Magic. Cat's Magic was just like, whatever Stormfire wants, whatever the representative is saying, that's what we've got to do. And I said, right, okay, how are we going to work this logistically? And then I remember going back to Stormfire and saying, you know, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to take her back to the UK domain? I mean, I don't want to take her away from you. And you've got all this security detail everywhere. I mean, don't we need that? And don't you want to be around her? Do I have to sort of relocate? So then I realized that I was actually in the US domain. And he said, there was this house that is white, this large house that is white. Now, I don't know if that is the house that is white or a different house that is white, but he said in the grounds, this huge grounds of this house that is white, are loads and loads of white cottages. And he said, you can have them all. You take one for you and Cat's Magic and for Sophie, and all the others can be for any family or friends that you need around you to help support you in raising Sophie. So there was I mean, I didn't count, but there was about, I don't know, maybe 7, 10, 12 white cottages, beautiful white cottages, so all in the grounds of this massive, massive grounds. And there would be security available for everyone there, and I could choose friends and family. And I remember saying, can I bring Scampy? That's my dog. And he said, yes, of course you can. Okay, so that was that. I'd agreed, I'm going to bring up Sophie. I had the responsibility of bringing up Stormfire's child, Stormfire's daughter, the savior of the world, but also this huge responsibility. Oh yeah, okay, so that was that, all about the cottages. Okay, so we're going for, did we go back to the phone bit? That's right. The phones were ringing off the hook, but this is a bit more forward in time again. I don't know how I knew that time had moved forward. I was holding Sophie the whole time. I constantly had this white blanket around her. A couple of times I did. I don't remember feeding her, but I do remember putting a little dress on her at one point and making her look all pretty. But most of the time I was holding her. And then the phones were ringing off the hook again. And it was more in the future. It had been a short period of time because Stormfire was making them wait for the second name. And he told me the second name, and he said, her name is Sophie Harmony. Sophie Harmony. And I thought, wow, that's so beautiful. And I kind of knew why he'd named her Harmony, especially as she was going to be the savior of the world. So I went over to the phones to speak to the press, and I said her second name, we can now release her second name. It's Sophie Harmony. And he burst out laughing, but not in a nice way, like he was like teasing and about the name, like Harmony, what a ridiculous name. And he started laughing. Then he said to all the people in his office, the middle name is Harmony, and they all started laughing. And I knew that they were kind of like, you know, being not very nice, laughing to take the mickey out of the name. So I just went, ha ha ha, and this really sort of ha ha ha, whatever, laughing at them for being so mean. And that was all I did. The next thing I saw in the newspapers, in the press, it said, Magenta Pixie tells us the second name of Stormfire's child, Sophie Harmony, and she laughs when she tells us her name is Harmony. They twisted it around and made it sound like I was laughing at the name Harmony. So I had to go over to Stormfire, and I'm like really worried. And I said, look, they've twisted it around. They've said that I was laughing at the name Harmony. I wasn't. They were laughing at the name Harmony, and I just went, ha ha ha, because they were laughing. And he looked at me and he said, I didn't for a minute think that you were laughing at her name. I know what the press do. I know they're twisting things around. Didn't think for a minute it was you. I said, okay, well, I didn't think you would, but I had to tell you when I saw the story that they'd released. So there'd been this argument, this disharmony in the early stages about the bottles of water, but there was still this respect and trust. That was what was so, there was this trust there. Okay, so that was the next bit. Then we're fast forward in time a little bit more, and Sophie was actually slightly bigger by this time. She was a bigger baby, but I still had her by me with the white sheet round her. She was just gorgeous, and I was completely in love with her. On this massive, great television screen, the competition was going ahead. And obviously Stormfire was the representative for the red squares. And I don't know who the blue square representative was. I wasn't shown that, but Stormfire was the red square representative. And it was the competition, and they were showing the squares, and they were just like red, like tsunami red. I mean, I did see all of this before, but, you know, I'm just telling you the dream. Tsunami red. And everyone was saying, he's winning, he's winning. And he was stood next to me, and I looked at him. I said, you're winning. You're winning. And he looked at me and again didn't smile or look overly happy or excited, just nodded with this little glint in his eye, as always. And then the representative came back, fell through the portal. So I went over to speak to the representative and I said, he's winning. And the representative said, there's so many no, that's it. I asked the question, how come they haven't changed the red squares to blue like they did before? How come that hasn't happened? How come it's just like constant red? And he said, because there's so many red squares, it's flooded the competition. They can't do the blue square changing thing. It just won't work. The squares are all red. And then I'm just looking to see if I think I've gone through all that. Okay, so I said, oh, okay. So I was being told he'd flooded the competition. And I said, will he win? Will he win? And the representative looked at me. I thought, he's got to answer me this question. Will he win? And the dream ended. So sorry, I don't have the answer to that. That was the dream. And yeah, it was epic. And there's a lot there. And I did sit down and look at some of these things and process them. I haven't processed everything. Dreams are often very multi-layered. And again, I want to say that I don't necessarily subscribe to the belief that getting Stormfire into the house that is white is the most important thing to do in third density. But that's what the representative was saying. That's something that, you know, in the dream I was questioning, and I'm questioning that now. But I'm seeing that not everything is literal. For me personally, things are so unknown in the timelines that the competition may not even go ahead at all. That's how I've been seeing things. But obviously in the dream, it did. And that's how it was presented. What I did analyze was Sophie. Now, Sophie obviously is a name that's derived from Sophia. We know Sophia is the divine feminine Christ consciousness, Christ Sophia, the divine feminine aspect of source or God. So and harmony is the energetic frequency of the paradise timeline, the positively polarized side of the bifurcation, and the frequency of any positively polarized structure based on unconditional love, bliss-charged love, golden consciousness, however you want to call that. So I know that Sophie Harmony, the baby, represented the divine feminine, positively polarized frequency. That's what I feel that she represented. Now, that is being held in a third dimensional sense by the awaken aware individuals, by the Starseeds. So I feel that the Starseeds are the ones that are the savior of the world, if you will. They're all Sophie. They're all Sophia. This little Sophie looked like Stormfire. And I've always said that Stormfire's path is intertwined with the ascension timeline. And I've stood by that. I've never changed my belief that that is intertwined with that path. However that may go, that there is definitely an intertwining. And that's new information if it's accurate information. Again, as I say, it's a dream, but it's new information that once Stormfire is placed back in the house that is white, that's when the job starts. That's when things really start. You know, that's what I was given by the representative, and I haven't particularly processed that. And then me being sort of the surrogate mother, am I the mother for the starseed consciousness on Earth? Am I the mother for the divine feminine consciousness? Well, I'm not the only one. All the starseeds are that. That's what I feel. But we're all the mother to that. And I think that my dream is just showing me I do that in my life. You know, I do hold the starseed consciousness. I do love the starseed consciousness. I do communicate with a representative for the higher dimensional energy, the 9. I am already very much in a state of utter support for Stormfire's pathway. So all of that is true, but I feel that this is symbolic. I feel that this is metaphoric. So is there anything else I can say here? I don't know what the water bottles signify. The shape that looks like a test tube, and then the normal shape, the sludge. I'm just not sure. Cat's magic felt, could it be something to do with the juice? That didn't trigger in me that it was juice. I was thinking more about filtering something distorted out of something that's clean, or does it mean literal water? Is water going to be a commodity? Now, the 9 in one of the recent transmissions, which hasn't been uploaded yet, did mention the water supply and the new builders of light having a role in how they would move forward with that. And I felt that there was some kind of positive movement, something that would counteract a more negative movement, and something to do with water. I've spoken about water and the importance of it with Pam Gregory. So I'm not sure. Cat's magic torn between Stormfire and me. That to me suggests that Cat's magic is more crystal in his energy, and that mine is sort of equal to Stormfire in the fact that we're both indigo. That's true. As I've said, the single most important thing in the 3rd density is to get Stormfire into the house that is white. I'm going to leave that to your interpretation. I'm not stating that. I'm just telling you what the dream said. It was a little girl, Sophie Harmony, savior of the world, looks just like Stormfire. I think that again is Stormfire being tied up with creation, and that is the Ascension timeline, because the child is creation. So we can't go forward and create our reality properly as a world with the Overlord hijack. So that's why Sophie is the savior of the world, because she's pure creation. And something Stormfire does is pivotal in switching things around. And according to the dream, it's getting him back into the house that is white. Again, that is something I'm just going to leave for you to interpret. If you feel that you're in resonance with this dream, it could simply just be a dream. The whole sort of stubborn kind of attitude, I feel that probably is part of Stormfire's personality, which is strange, because that's probably what he's like. So he might be difficult to be around for some people, but at the same time, utter respect, because the support for him to be top banana is ultimate. And that stubbornness is a characteristic he needs in order to be top banana, because he cannot be manipulated. I said all of this years ago when he was first running, when he first got in as top banana, and I still feel that. So yeah, I mean, that was the dream, and I wanted to come and share it. I would be interested in your interpretations, anything you feel you might like to add to that. But it was epic. It had, the dream had that element of, we're giving you a message. This is a message. This is something for you to look at. It did have that feel about it. So that's why I'm sharing. I can't keep something like that to myself. I have to share it. So I didn't have a day off, but that's fine. That's fine. And that's another thing I thought. If I'm the mother of a little baby, I wouldn't be able to take a day off. I can't just think, oh, I'm not going to feed the baby today. I'm not going to look after the baby today. I'll just leave her in her pram and just go and like watch TV or whatever. So if my work is nurturing the baby, as in the Sophia consciousness, Christ Sophia, higher dimensional energy, divine feminine energy, then I can't take a day off, because it's, how do you take a day off from something that's in you 24/7 all the time? You can't. It's you become it. And that's what being the mother is. You are at one with the baby. You hold the baby, you nurture the baby. When you're pregnant, you are literally one. And when the baby is first born, that oneness then takes place outside of the womb for, well, forever, really. As any mother will tell you, once you have a baby, you are intertwined with that baby forever. So lots of symbolism here. And yeah, I mean, if you want to share any insights, as I said, Telegram. If you email me, the Telegram link will be in the automatic reply. So you'll be able to join the Telegram group. You can speak to me on Instagram. Oh, and on MeWe as well. I'm on MeWe as well. I'm also on Gab. I'm on Minds. I will upload this video to YouTube, but also to Rumble, to BitChute, and to Odyssey. I don't have comments enabled on BitChute. I'm not sure about Odyssey, actually, but Rumble I do. And I'd just like to say something, actually, about Rumble before I go. There's been a few uploads there that haven't gone on to YouTube because they are not Storytime videos. And there's been a few, I think 3, possibly 4 copycat individuals posting as Magenta Pixie. If you have a look and you see any of those comments, you'll see that Magenta Pixie is spelt differently, or official Magenta Pixie, which is what I am on Instagram and what I am on Telegram, but I'm not that on Rumble. I'm not Magenta Pixie on Rumble, but they've used the names that I am on other sites, so people might think it's me, and they're posting and giving an email address where you can contact them. Well, please, 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 if you see a comment from someone saying I'm Magenta Pixie, email me. That's not me. I'm not going to post my email on Rumble and ask you to email me. Please, please do not fall for this. Please do not engage these copycats. I know it's happening. It's happening to everyone who has a following or who's getting a lot of views on videos. These posts only seem to be on the videos that have more views because they're not on YouTube. I've deleted them all as much as I can. I've tried to keep on top of it. I've blocked these people, but I mean, if it keeps on happening, I may have to disable comments entirely on Rumble, unfortunately, because I don't want someone to think it is me and email this person thinking it's me and end up buying some kind of product that they're selling. So please, my email address is on my website, magentapixie.com. You go on there, that's my email address. There's no other email address for you to send emails to. You can speak to me in the group on Telegram if you are unsure, if someone is me and you can't get hold of me. If you go to my Telegram group and ask and say, is this Magenta? The regulars in the group will tell you whether it's me or not, because they know. I've got some very helpful people in the Telegram group and they can absolutely tell you if that's me or not. But likely it isn't, because I don't go out and speak to people and leave comments and ask people to email me. I don't have time to do that, and I don't have time to encourage emails other than what I'm doing now, which is for you if you would like to share your insights with the stream. I can't guarantee I can reply back, because if there are lots of replies, it's not possible for me to reply to everyone. However, I will read them all if they are related to this video and related to the stream. And if anything is really resonating with me, I'll come on here and talk about it some more. But please have discernment and realize that this is a dream and it's a guideline. It's not the ultimate presentation. It's a guideline. It's heavily metaphoric, heavily symbolic. Could take a long time to unravel, but it did feel very significant. It had that energy of, we are showing you something. You need to take note of this. Especially, as I'd said, I'm going to take tomorrow off. And then I have this dream that night. That's almost like we're showing you, you can't take time off. You are it. You know, you can't just stop doing this. This is you. So yeah, wonderful dream, really. A lot there, a lot to unpack, and I look forward to hearing from you, comments or emails, or however you would like to respond. Thank you for listening. I know that this was a long one, really epic. And yeah, I'll be back with more videos. Take care. Bye.